This is Maria Martinez, one of the most famous of the Pueblo potters from the 20th century. She is going to be a part of what I'm going to call a conscious renaissance, an effort to revitalize Pueblo pottery by returning to the past and borrowing from Mimbres as well as ancestral Pueblo. It is going to be a specific effort on her part to do that, partly in response to 19th century attempts by the governments of both the United States and Canada, and missionaries as well, to assimilate the Native Americans, partly by sending them to Indian schools, but to promote the assimilation of Native Americans into American culture, and by doing so, turning away from their native heritage. This took a toll on traditional arts. It's only going to be before, so I'd say somewhere before the midpoint of the 20th century, that a revival actually takes place, and along with it, a traditional understanding of the technology that allowed local potters to actually create new expressions based upon old designs. Maria Martinez married Julian Martinez, who happened to be working as a laborer at an archaeological dig nearby when there was an unusual shard, a piece of broken pottery that was excavated. And they asked if Julian could take this to his wife, because they knew she was a potter, and see if she could reconstruct the vessel. It happened to be an unusual piece from a blackware vase, and it spurred an interest in her and also her husband. And as a result of that, she began studying American Indian pottery in museums and picking up motifs or patterns from these ceramic pieces that she began to incorporate in her own work. Working with her husband, she created the vessel form, and he did the designs on it and also worked on the firing. The two of them came up with a super famous black on black creation or style for wares that came out of her pueblo, making her almost immediately a kind of superstar. If you take a look at the vessels that she has, that's her in old age, as she's seated and she's holding one in her lap. She's got one next to her. These are huge. They can be huge anyway. And these are all done without a wheel. They're relatively thin-walled, and they've been made by coiling. The woman was really good, and working with her husband as a team, they produced some astonishing works. Black on black ware. There is one example located in the right, and it is a birdie with feathers. That is a representation of the black on black ware. The background of the bird is a matte, so it no longer has the sheen that the birdie does. The bird and the feathers next to it, and the whole rest of the vessel itself, are highly burnished. This is not a glaze that's been applied. No glaze has been used. This has all been achieved. The shine on this vessel has all been achieved by polishing the vessel, probably using a river stone, which would have been very time consuming and also a great deal of work. But the black on black is achieved by contrasting a shiny area with a dull area or a matte. This is the photograph in our textbook 218. It shows Maria and Julian working together. She does the forming of the vessel, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. He does the decorations on the surface of the vessel, and also usually did the main part of the firing. Over on our right is an example of Mimbres ware, and I had a similar one for you to look at just a bit ago. It's a feather dish, and the one underneath it is coming from Maria Martinez, and it also is a feather dish. So the idea here is borrowing from a Mimbres design and reinventing it, because they're not exactly the same. The movement, the kind of spiraling energy that is a part of Mimbres, has been toned down a little bit in the perhaps I'm going to say a little bit more elegant design that became a part of the vocabulary of the Martinez team. This is a good place to pause and say something about gender roles in Native American art. You can reference our textbook, page 39, on this as well. Pottery in particular is often associated with females as potters, as the folks associated with, to begin with, acquiring the clay, which is the first thing that you have to do. When you go to get the clay, you have to say a prayer to Mother Earth, and the female collecting the clay is seen as a daughter of Mother Earth. And it's from this point on that there is such a deep connection between the female gender and the creation of ceramic ware. However, overall, there is some flexibility, and particularly recently that flexibility has grown, but it also always existed, whereby both genders could work on a particular object if it brought a certain skill set to that object. For example, in the Northwest Coast, the guy would create the pattern, hand it to the woman, and then the woman would actually use the pattern to create a weaving. It was a joint endeavor. Generally speaking, there is a division of labor in the world of art in North America among the First Peoples, but the differences are seen as complementary. They're not seen as one's inferior to the other. There will be certain materials in general. There's a tendency for females to work with, and they would include clay, and they would also include fiber. By fiber, I also mean plant fiber, so I'm talking about weaving as well as basket making. Men, on the other hand, would be more likely to work in materials like stone or wood. Nevertheless, both of their creations would have been seen as complementary and necessary for the community to thrive, and both of them would have been viewed as doing something that was creating something that was imbued with power. And both of them would have been directed through visions and through dreams to bring spiritual power into the creation that they're making. In other words, to bring it into the earth. In short, what I'm saying is that Native Americans seem to have no problem with gender issues. They saw the male role and the female role as balanced, and they saw both parties working with materials that conveyed power and spirituality. And they saw both individual, male and female, as interacting with that spiritual force. Unfortunately, it's the Western connoisseur, the person who comes along and judges Native American art, that brings Western values and stereotypes to an interpretation of what is high art and what is craft, essentially. The West has tended to value the art that men make, and the reason that they've done that is, well, partly just a prejudice, a male worldview, but it's because it's based upon the idea that the male artist is truly engaging in individual expression that comes to him through the vision quest, and that he's creating works of art that are sacred. In other words, that they're associated with religion, with politics, and also sometimes with military activities or with warfare. They're more powerful, they're more basic, they're fundamental, they are sacred. What women create, in contrast, tended, until recently at least, to be viewed as craft because it was utilitarian. Things like baskets, things like fabrics, these were placed by Western connoisseurs into the realm of the secular. We tend to not do that as much anymore, although I can't say that the stereotypes are completely erased. What I do want you to know is that Julian simply recognized that it would be more profitable for the family to work with his wife on pottery, doing the decorating of the vessels she created, and the two of them turned out to make an absolutely wonderful team. These are additional images. It's Julian. This is an open kiln or fire outside where he's going to place the ceramic ware to be heated and fired. The two images are just to show you the coiling method, and I think this is Maria Martinez down at the bottom. This is a coil, heavy coil of clay that she's holding in her hand, and she's going to use that to shape and build up the edges of the vessel. You might be able to see the way the coil is going around here. No wheel is involved in this, and no glaze is involved in the creation of these vessels. This is another example of work that was created by Maria Martinez, but this is a joint adventure, not with Julian, and I think I need to explain how that happened. Maria Martinez, with her signed ceramic vessels, became so successful that she and her husband were making lots of money. They were actually able to hire domestic help. I do believe they bought the first automobile at the Pueblo, and this ended up creating resentment in the community because this was an egalitarian community. When she realized the resentment, what she decided to do was address the problem by going out and signing other people's pots. In other words, you could make a vessel, and if Maria felt like it, she'd put her name on the bottom, and consequently you could sell your vessel for much more money. She also started taking other people's vessels and putting slip color on them and burnishing them for other folks. What this reflects is this sense, I talked about it with the Andes, sense of collectivity, the importance of the whole, of the group, being more important than the individual. So she wanted to share the rewards that she was getting with the entire community. And she did this in part also by teaching everybody how to make these vessels, and she taught them how to do black on black. She also often would join with another member of the community, as she did here, in creating the finished vessel. So this one is Maria with another member of the community other than Julian, creating a pretty sophisticated piece of black on black ware. The problem, of course, is if you are a collector and want to buy a Maria Martinez vessel, or if you're a museum and you want to put a Maria Martinez vessel in your museum, it's kind of tough to be sure exactly what you're buying. She also passed on her skill set to her descendants, the people who came after her. And there are now 5 generations of folks in Maria Martinez's family who are making pretty sophisticated black on black ware. Okay. This is one example. The folks, the couple in the right with their vessels in front of them. This is a photograph I took in Santa Fe, New Mexico in 2009, and they're descended from the line of Maria Martinez, and they're continuing to work in the traditions that she gave them, essentially. So she's allowed her entire community to flourish, and she's also opened the door to creating artworks to help to improve the economy, not just of her pueblo, but of the surrounding pueblos as well. And artwork has been one of the vehicles to do that. The images upper left belong to I think they're grandchildren, if my memory is correct, grandchildren or great-grandchildren of Maria Martinez. And the day that I was there, I did buy 2 vessels there at the bottom of the screen. They were produced by these folks. It's much more affordable to buy vessels from the descendants of Maria Martinez than to try and shop a ware created with her name on it today. The point being, the tradition continues, and the whole pueblo is benefiting from what Maria Martinez achieved. Not only did she help to support the economy of the pueblo, but she's also encouraged the continuation of traditions of past designs and has elevated a great amount of respect for Mimbres as well as ancestral Pueblo creations. It is a renaissance.